I guess the best way to explain it is I've sort of just followed the path where it's led me. I never set out to be a specific kind of reporter. I never, I know some of my colleagues did. My goal was never to work at ESPN. I just sort of followed the opportunity.
Welcome to The Next Level Journalist, where you will hear from some of the best journalists in the business or who have been there, done that, and willing to share with you what they've learned so you can get better, faster. Today's guest is a longtime journalist, more than 2 decades of experience in the industry, technically closer to 3 decades, and he's covered both news and sports. So he's done a little bit of everything in this business, and many will know him from his work as an ESPN sports reporter on SportsCenter, Sunday NFL Countdown, Monday Night Countdown, Baseball Tonight, Outside the Lines. I could go on and on here. But today he's also the director of player promotions for the MLB Players Association. Without further ado, Mr. Bob Holtzman, thank you for making time for this today.
Kyle, thank you for asking. Almost 3 decades. Now I know why my beard's gray. So that's a long time in this business.
I mean, heck, I think about me, technically, I picked up a camera when I was in high school. So I tell people I have 2 decades of experience as well.
There you go. So maybe my 3 decades started when I was 8 years old. Who knows?
You know, I think that's just, a feather in your hat, if you will, saying, look, this person's been there, done that. You can probably learn a thing or two from this individual. So let's jump right into this, Bob. I talked about, a Cliff Notes version of your resume. Give us an idea, though, of what got you interested in this first and then what you're doing today.
Yeah, so I kind of grew up in it. My dad was in the TV news business behind the scenes. He sort of ran a newsroom. And so I would, when I was a little kid and had days off of school, I would sometimes go hang out with him at work. And he jokes that he wishes he wouldn't let me because I ended up following in his footsteps into this business. But it's been a lot of fun. I mean, you sort of documented how lucky I've been and what I've been able to do for all these years. And I guess the best way to explain it is I've sort of just followed the path where it's led me. I never set out to be a specific kind of reporter. I never, I know some of my colleagues did. My goal was never to work at ESPN. I just sort of followed the opportunities and started in news, was a news reporter in some local markets. We can get into that if you want. Ended up transitioning into sports. When I got hired at ESPN and had never really done sports, but the skills between obviously news reporting and sports reporting are basically the same thing. You're just covering different subject matter. Spent a long time, spent 16 years at ESPN and now, started a storytelling unit helping the Major League Baseball players get their stories told and help fans get to know who they are. So yeah, it's been, I always joke with people, it's been better than having a real job. And it's sort of felt that way for all these years.
So take us back to maybe when you got your first job, official, quote unquote, first job breaking into the industry.
Yeah, my first real job after I graduated college, internships and stuff like that beforehand. But my first real job, I was 23. I guess I just turned 23. Got hired as a reporter in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Got a huge break. I mean, it's a decent sized TV market. So I was put into this situation where I was brand new, sort of having to learn on the fly. Obviously, I had a college degree and had been trained in journalism. And, as I said, had grown up kind of watching how things are done and had some internships. But here I am in this newsroom, and most of the people who I'm surrounded by are, 8, 10 years older than I am, who had been in TV for quite a while. So, I hope there aren't too many videos that still exist of my first or second year in the business, because I think I'd be embarrassed to see them now, but that's how you learn. I mean, you learn by doing it. And unfortunately, unlike somebody who may be an accountant or some other business where, there's no video record of you when you were young in the business, this is a business where those videos do exist. And fortunately it was 1994 and, obviously way before iPhones, and not everybody had video access to everything. So I guess I'm lucky that a lot of those videos happened before everybody had video everywhere.
Right.
Well, that's I can relate to that. I've actually looked at my VHS tape. It's literally right here, my first resume tape.
Yep.
It's changed a little bit, even in my time in this. So okay, let's fast forward to when you broke through to ESPN. How did that opportunity present itself?
Luck, to be honest with you. Like you're talking about the tape. I mean, one thing you do in this business is you always have a resume tape of your best work that you send out looking for the next opportunity. And for young people looking to get into this business and trying to understand sort of how it works, I would compare it to the minor leagues in baseball. Sort of single A, double A, triple A major leagues, and that's you can move up within a newsroom. Get promoted from one position to a bigger position, maybe be the main anchor or whatever. I always found the easiest way to move up, if you were willing, was to physically move.
Mm-hmm.
So I moved to a number of different cities and was working for the ABC affiliate in Cincinnati, and ESPN had a job open for a reporter. And, I figured, why not? Let's send something. I kind of figured it was a long shot. At that point, I had only done news, and I figured my future was probably at CNN or something like that. If I was lucky enough to get a network job,
Mm-hmm.
that it would probably be covering news. And one thing led to another. Went up to Bristol for an interview, and about, 6 weeks later, I started. So, the next thing you know, 16 years had passed. So that's what I said about sometimes just following the road where it takes you. Maybe you can map it out. I don't know how you'd feel about it. I don't know that this is a business that you really can map out.
Right. No doubt. I mean, I would have never, well, for starters, I lost my first job. I was let go, so I found out how difficult and cutthroat it could be.
Right.
And, here I am doing my own video, production business. So I never would have planned any of this. So I can certainly, agree on that front. When you look at that time at ESPN, that's any sports reporter's, pinnacle, what they're going after. Paint us a picture of what that was like to work there and to do what you did.
Yeah, it was an incredible opportunity. I covered events that I'll be telling my grandkids about. This will date me a little bit, but for people who are old enough to remember Steve Bartman and the Cubs 2003 and the foul, I was there, and it's like, and that's a story I'll be able to tell people hopefully 50 years from now if I'm still around. So the opportunities just to work with some of the best people in the business, to learn from people who were better than me, to attend some of these events, to travel. I mean, I probably had assignments in 9, 10, 11 different countries. I mean, to see the world, to see the country, and have them pay for it. I mean, it was an incredible opportunity. And I started there when I was 29, I think, and left there when I was 46. So that will always be a special place for me and a special time in my career. I sort of felt like I went in as this kind of young kid and came out as sort of a grown man with wife and kids, and like my whole life kind of developed during that time period. And it was I have nothing but fond memories about that time.
Well, this might be a difficult one to answer, but is there like a top 3 memorable moments from working there?
Yeah, a couple of them may surprise you. So people have asked me this question, which is the only reason why I have an answer. It's hard to sometimes even just go through all the different places I was. And I wish I would have kept a journal. Maybe that would be something for young people getting into the business. I would love to be able to look back and say, here I was at this event on this date, and I was there when Barry Bonds hit his 70th home run. But I don't really have any specific recollections of what that felt like, because everything sort of runs together. But
right.
Definitely the Bartman game, 2003. The year after that, I kind of thought nothing could ever top that Cubs Marlins 2003 NLCS.
Mm-hmm.
Took a year, because the year after that I covered the Yankees Red Sox 2004 NLCS, and that was the one the Yankees were up 3-0, and the Red Sox came back, Curt Schilling with the bloody sock and the whole deal. And then that was when the Red Sox, ended the curse finally in 2004. One of the coolest things I ever did, this is going to sound really strange, 2011, spent a month in Germany covering the U.S. women's soccer team in the World Cup. They didn't win, they finished second. But that experience, getting to know the team, that was really when the U.S. women's team kind of became what they are now. Sort of the superstars and role models for girls. And, back before 2011, it was, women's soccer wasn't really thought of as being equal with men's soccer. And just seeing, some of the games and some of the things that happened, and, Abby Wambach and some of the players I got to cover, it was again, Olympics, World Cup, World Series. I could go on and on. There's just so many cool opportunities.
Right. And that, like I said, I realized even what I did, I really can't peg down a top 3, top 5 is considering what you have covered. You might, you should consider writing a book.
I should. Yeah. My dad has told me that. And like I said, I wish I had the notes because maybe I can somehow jog my memory about all this stuff. But, Peyton Manning's last game, Peyton Manning's retirement. You're right. There's a lot of stuff there if I can somehow dig it up.
Wow. That's pretty special. When you look at, because you're still active in storytelling and we'll get to what you do today, but what does drive you? What do you think is, that keeps that passion going for what it is that you do?
I think it is the storytelling. I think it's taking something that either somebody doesn't have access to and giving them access, or taking a story that, and this was definitely the case in the news business, taking a story that maybe not everybody understands and putting it, sort of distilling it down into something that's easy to understand. And obviously, as TV stories are a minute and 15 seconds or a minute and a half. It's got to be quick and simple and understandable. And, to be able to go in the old days to a city council meeting or to something that was semi-complex and has all these different layers, and be able to make it into something that people can say, oh, okay, I get it, and get something out of it. That's always sort of been a fun challenge for me. I know it probably sounds a little bit strange, but just that concept of being able to create something that somebody can watch for 90 seconds and say, cool, I get it. Oh, I like that guy, or whatever.
Let's talk about the storytelling that you do today. It's pretty cool now. I must say, you still get to do what you did at ESPN, but focusing on storytelling. That's awesome.
It's funny. What I do now is I sort of took the parts of ESPN that I really enjoyed the most and was able to create an opportunity to just do that. So I no longer do live shots. I'm no longer reporting from events, like the daily news type stuff. What we do exclusively is feature stories, human interest stories on the Major League Baseball players, for the simple reason to help fans get to know them. And we're not talking about, hey, here's how I throw my curveball. It's off the field stuff. It's who is this guy? Where did he come from? What's his passion? And the hope is that, Major League Baseball has not done a very good job over the years. If you think about athletes who you feel like probably, NBA players, LeBron James, Steph Curry, probably some NFL players, Tom Brady, some of the big stars in other leagues, even maybe some soccer players. Baseball, people don't feel that connection because they haven't done such a good job of introducing the players to fans and who they are. So, my goal is to do stories that people can watch and feel like they know who the guy is. And if they're watching a game or sometime soon being able to attend a game and this guy comes up to bat, they can tell their wife or they can tell their friends, hey, I saw a story on this guy and he's X, Y, and Z. And so that's really the simple goal.
Good for you. That's a great idea. That was a great idea. What about the storytelling process? Take us through how your mind works, from pre-production to that delivery.
The two keys to me are research, being prepared for the interview so that you know what it is you're trying to accomplish, and there shouldn't really be any surprises. You should come prepared. And the second key to me, and this is going to sound really strange, and we're kind of getting deep into the weeds a little bit here, but is logging the interview. I take a lot of pride and spend a lot of time going through, looking for just little bits. Maybe it's not a 15-second soundbite. Maybe it's a 2-second couple of words and a laugh, and you can somehow create part of a story off that. So it's a long process. I mean, we can get into the scripting process if you want, but it's really just, it's being able to have the confidence that when you sit down with somebody, you're so prepared that you don't really need notes. You feel like you know them and can just sit there and have a conversation. I've always found that if you're the whole time, if you're like this, that it makes it hard for the person you're interviewing to feel engaged and feel connected, because you keep breaking that connection every time you lose eye contact. Mm-hmm. And so if there's a way to just sit there and just know what you're about to get into and be able to have an eye-to-eye, face-to-face conversation, I think that's probably the best way to get the best material.
Yeah, I have no doubt we could have done a Q&A simply on storytelling today. No doubt about that. But with that said, how did you develop, you think, that skill?
Repetition, first of all, and talking to people I worked with who I thought were good at it. One thing you don't get to do in this business is go out and watch other reporters work. You're always out by yourself. You're out with a photographer or whatever, producer, but you don't get to see how other people do it in the field. So especially once I got to ESPN, whenever I had the opportunity, if I saw a story or an interview I liked, I'd reach out to somebody and say, how did that happen? Why did you do this? How did you do that? And I think for people, especially younger in the business, asking questions, talking to coworkers, finding somebody you like, whether it's somebody you work with or somebody at a network level or somebody, who has a style that you enjoy, and just study, just watching and watching and watching. That's what I did when I was in Albuquerque. I found somebody who worked at CBS News, whose style, actually a photographer I worked with said, hey, there's this guy, Bob McNamara, that tells stories for CBS News. You kind of remind me of him a little bit, like maybe you want to watch some of his stories. And so this was pre-YouTube, but I got my hands on every story I could and just watched and just looked at technically, how he would tell a story, what his voice sounded like, how he would interview people, what kinds of questions he would ask, and actually struck up, I wouldn't say a friendship, but struck up a sort of a pen pal conversation with him, mm-hmm. where we exchanged some tapes and he gave me some feedback. That was tremendously helpful. But that would be my best bit of advice, is find somebody whose style you respect, whose approach you respect, and just watch everything you can.
That's great. Is there any advice that you got from maybe Bob or anyone in general that's really resonated with you over the years?
First of all, you have to be yourself. I mean, you can't, as much as I talk about trying to learn and watch and emulate somebody else, like everybody has their own style, mm-hmm. and there are things you can learn, but you have to be who you are. And, there were times at ESPN, I got into this business because I liked telling stories. I liked reporting. I never wanted to be quote unquote on TV. I didn't want to be a celebrity or a TV star. I never did theater stuff when I was a kid. So there was a performance element to it. To be honest, that ESPN sometimes, I wouldn't say pushed, but rewarded, the people who were more theatrical on camera than I was. And I thought a lot about that. I experimented with stuff at times, and that just wasn't something that was me. Yeah. I mean, I consider myself a reporter. My job is to give you information, whether I'm covering a car accident or a World Series game. I want to tell you stuff that I think you'll find interesting and that I feel like you need to know. I don't think you need a performance. And so that's, did it hurt me at times? Probably. But ultimately you have to be comfortable with your personality and your performance.
Well, listen, Bob, I know, again, I know I could ask you all kinds of questions about ESPN, what you do for MLB Players Association all day long. And hopefully we can talk again down the road, but I'm going to leave you with one last question. And that's just, is there anything else that you want to add that you think, aspiring journalists or current journalists could really take from, this conversation, something you'd like to share?
Yeah. I mean, I think the one thing, when I talk to high school, college kids who are thinking about getting into the business, the one thing I always want to make clear to them, and this is certainly not to be taken as a negative, but just reality, is you need to understand what you're getting into. It's not Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, as you know. It's nights, it's weekends, it's holidays. It's a heck of a lot of fun. I find it a lot more fun than just sitting in an office and doing the same job every day, the same hours every day. But if you're not willing to work holidays, I mean, I spent more Thanksgivings in the press box at Ford Field in Detroit than I did with my family, when I was with ESPN. That's just reality. It's not sad. It just is. Yeah. That's the reality of the business. And the other thing I would say along those same lines is you need to be willing to move. If you grew up in a city and you're hoping to go work in a job in that city and stay in that city for 30 years, it's probably not going to happen. I've lived in all 4 time zones, and that's part of the growth. That's part of how you grow as a person. That's part of how you grow in the business. So if you're not willing to move, and if you're not willing to work weird hours, it may not be for you, but as long as you know that going in, it's a pretty cool thing to do.
Wow. Again, thank you so much for your time, and I want to respect your time, but I also want to get you on here again soon. Cause like I said, I've already got a ton of other questions I want to ask about TV.
So we can do part 2 next time.
That sounds good with me. I appreciate you, Bob.
You got it, Kyle.
And thank you for checking out this channel. If you found this content beneficial, I'd appreciate it if you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and share it with someone you think might find it beneficial as well, because this channel was simply started and created to serve you, to help others grow, to learn how other successful TV journalists do or did it. So take what serves you so you can get better faster and reach your next level.